Hey, my name is Marco. I'm a former professional opera singer, and I love talking about music from an emotional perspective after a decade on the stage, and music is all about emotion. And today we're listening to Hanezeve Caradhina featuring Takeshi Saito from Made in Abyss. Let's go. I love the way that we start with a piano like this because it's a very emotional and very exposed sound quality, especially in the upper register. Now, if you think about it, when we listen to this, as we start, listen how we have this open sound and it's very light in the upper register of the piano, really representing that innocence and that sense of childlike wonder, perhaps. Listen to this. Do you hear how there's quite a bit of space there, and I think it's because the pedal tone is being held down, so the pedal is the rightmost of the pedals. There's 3 pedals, and the rightmost is the pedal. And what that does is sort of makes everything a little bit murky. I'm not actually sure if it's in here, because if you release the pedal, what you're going to get is bum, 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 which is actually what this might be. So there might not be any pedal tone on it at all. But what's really interesting is that there's a lot of space in between the notes. And I think that space leaves a gap for thought. It leaves a gap for a question, like a sigh even, a breath. What's going on? You know, really, really cool start. I like to start because the first 20 seconds really make or break a piece, just like the last 20 seconds make or break a piece. Wow, incredible falsetto. One of the really profound things about this piece that I'm hearing even right off the bat is, first of all, you have to understand that the male falsetto in the very upper register, that's complete head voice. Right? Now, we're obviously still using our chords, speaking from an opera singer's perspective. We're still using our chords, but what we end up doing is when we're in falsetto, it's all head. There's no chest carried up at all. It's all head voice. And that head voice, again, leaves a sense of innocence, a sense of vulnerability, especially because of where it sits. There's a natural quality in there to feel a little bit, not uncomfortable, but a little bit tender. Also here, we essentially have, I don't want to call it gibberish, but there's a lot of accented syllables. Ha la la, ha se la, ha la la la, CVB, la shi dina, how we la. I don't know if this is an actual language or not, but the point is that sound quality there is very, very, very exposed. Also, the harmony, it almost feels like a couplet, like a duo. It feels like an embrace almost, or like being held or being supported by 2 people or 1 person and someone else. I think because of the way that the upper falsetto, the upper harmony is very, very, very exposed. And la, 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 la. Also worth noting is how bright that sound quality is and how breathy that sound quality is. It's all very close to the mic. It's very exposed. Again, breath and natural imperfection in the sound is beautiful and should be embraced, especially for this style of singing. A little bit of byproduct in the sound is really, really effective at producing an emotional, contextual feeling. Really interestingly, the lower harmony, obviously richer because it's more in the upper register of the natural transition from chest to head voice. So it's a bit richer, a bit more strong in the sound. It's really cool to hear how vulnerable that is. That's more so like the key defining word I would use to describe this piece so far. A little bit of playfulness, but really it's really about discovery and really about accomplishing a feat or traversing danger. Really cool so far. And hold on one second. The other thing I'd like to point out is that the piano and the piano arpeggiations that we've had and the piano in general, I do think that gives way to a really organic quality. So it's actually interesting to hear a little bit of this synthetic play around it, because the piano arpeggiations where we're just plucking out each individual note of the chord does leave us with, how do I describe this? It feels very, not raw per se, but there's a sound quality in that is very tender, and it really does. When you think about it, what we're doing when we arpeggiate is playing 3 different chords rather than playing all 3 notes at the same time. That's a real whole sound. Breaking up the arpeggiation almost feels like it's the skeleton of the chord. Well, because it is, we're accenting each individual note of the chord. And so what that does is it leaves a lot of exposure it's weird because it could feel like rain. It could feel like in this picture, it looks like they're climbing. So it could emphasize that aspect, but there's a real sense there of not being whole, if that makes sense. There's tension in that right there. The bass is actually coming up. Yeah, nice crescendo. And you hear how there's a lot of, we're just moving by half steps here. There's a lot of almost an enharmonic feeling, especially with this little accent over top. I also think it's accented instrument over top. There's also this really, it almost sounded like a soprano sax. I know it's not that. It's some kind of flute, but that flute is really, there's a little bit of distress in that sound that comes through, especially because we're just moving just bits and pieces. We're not staying within chord structure. We're really deviating and sort of meandering around, but that causes tension. You know, when we dip in pitch or raise and go sharp in pitch, what we're doing is creating tension, and that's really I think evocative and effective, especially when you consider the first minute of this was very light, bright, beautiful, peaceful, a little bit of maybe antagonism or hesitancy, and then now we're really in like the mud, you know what I mean? Wow, that's gorgeous. That's so gorgeous. Let's rewind. That's such a like an outward cry. I do really like this mixture of harmony where the upper is more exposed until we get to the very, and then we do get that warmer sound underneath it, really buoying and supporting that upper voice. This has got to be some sort of a story, and I don't know this, but it's got to be some sort of a story about guiding a friend along on a journey. And again, look at the image. I don't know if this is some sort of like upside down beanstalk or something, but like it looks like these two guys are, well, I don't know, actually, I don't know, but anyway, it looks like they're supporting each other, you know, but like, let's go back to this real peak here where we move away from the dissonance. Love that cascading down piano is so beautiful. To pull back all the way there vocally is so lovely. And also it's a natural resolution and a natural coming to an end. Also the bum 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 bum, the piano, it almost feels like tears. It really is about descending down into madness and trying to come to terms with like what the hell is going on. And I love that the voices also start to diminuendo and pull back in that sound quality so that we're left with this feeling of like just being, I mean, the song is only 3 minutes and 21 seconds. It's not that long. And yet we really go on a complete journey of stress, of coming to terms with something, to this real peak of like, we know we can do this. And then a sense of breathing through this sort of antagonism. And that's 3 voices in that chord structure too. That's quite nice. What a beautiful piece. Very evocative. That piece is, and then that's cool too, because we actually do end up, I think we end up on a chord structure here. Hold on. Yeah, we end up on a 3-note, probably more like 4 or 5 notes chord structure here, which is really one of the few times we hear the piano actually play the full chord, even though we have this dynamic and wide range of things that are happening at this tail end here, which is unironically the most played section, 1 minute and 57 seconds, all the way down to 250-ish. That's where we have this big swell. We have a lot of different instruments coming in together, really propelling that emotional journey and that emotional idea of circumventing difficulty, and then we fade into whatever ending we're fading into, and it's really powerful stuff. If you enjoy this, I'm doing a lot of watch-alongs to different anime over on Patreon. Feel free to check out more of the videos on the channel, and as always, thanks a ton, and I'll see you later.